Started. Okay, I'll call the October 24th Park and Recreation Committee to order. First order of business is approval of the agenda. Moved by Steve Bender, seconded by James Foster. Any discussion? Hear none, all in favor by saying aye. Opposed? Next order of business, and three, approval of the September 26, 2022 minutes. I make a motion by James
Second.
Foster to approve the minutes.
Can I make one note? Because I forgot to amend the agenda.
Oh, we're back to the, sorry, we've already done the agenda. I'm kidding.
No, with the previous minutes.
Oh, why don't we get them on the floor and then we.
Sounds good.
Correct.
Oh.
Moved to approve by James Foster, seconded by Karen Powers. Now.
Yep. The date on the minutes says September 19th. It should say this is September 6th. So just so you're aware, small, very minor, but in the actual minutes, it says September 19th at the top.
Any more discussion on the minutes as presented? Or corrected? All here, as the minutes as corrected, we might say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, fourth agenda item is public comment. Sure, come and state your name and address and go right ahead.
My name is David King, 1573 Pondview Drive, Neenah, Wisconsin, county resident for years and years and years. At the county board meeting, I was given 2 minutes, so I got to clarify point of order, what time does my clock start, or how fast do I have to talk?
Here?
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you, as long as you don't go like for half hour, I'll give you how much leeway, okay?
Okay, I was just wondering, because I was surprised at the county board.
I know,
meeting.
that's them not,
This is to the rest of the county board members, just regard to Park and Rec, but nobody in their right mind can state their name, address, and make a point in 2 minutes. I can understand what a big issue, you got lines of people standing in there and they all got want to say something when you limit it to 2 minutes. But I think that, county board should consider raising that to at least 5 minutes. And giving someone an opportunity to actually state their case. 2 minutes is not adequate. If you have a lot of people standing in line, I understand it. In regards to the Park and Rec Department and the county board, I just want to thank you guys for the Government Boat Launch project. It is so wonderful. From where it started to where it is now, it's a dream come true. It's wonderful. I think it's going to be great for the county residents, and I want to thank each and every one of you for moving this project along. I think every county taxpayer is going to benefit from this. And the third thing I wanted to talk about was every 5 years, the DNR requires that a survey be filled out in regards to park and recreation needs and wants of county residents. I believe our current DNR survey is due to expire in 2023, if I'm not mistaken,
At the end of 2023.
at the end of 2023. So I'm sure that at some point in 2023 here, the DNR is going to want to conduct another survey. And some of the county board, the Park and Rec meeting I watched, you were asking that what can we do to get more public input and find out what people really want. I heard you say that, Mike. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for you as a group to find out what county residents want from the Park and Rec Department. And what you should be doing, and what I'd like to suggest, is that you get contact the DNR, find out how they conduct their survey, what where they had success completing the survey, where they got more response, and find out, try to facilitate to make this be a larger group of people. The last survey that was conducted in Winnebago County only involved 100 people, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, but one suggestion I'd like to make, and I don't know if it's possible, is for some way to get the county Park and Rec Department tied into Facebook. Now, I don't know if that you can or can't do that, but if you get something going on Facebook in regards to the wants and needs of the county residents, I think it's going to spread like wildfire. You're going to have more survey results to base your decisions on in the future.
To answer that, I don't know if you turn off the reading, but I'm sure Justin can give us an update. That's kind of that's one of his main duties is to do. I think when he gives his report, he can probably, now he can do it, and then, because still, that's what Justin's main job is to do here. About
Okay,
marketing.
I don't know what their criteria is and how they conduct their survey, but it was anemic as far as the number of people that responded. And if you really want to do this right, and find out what county residents want, I think, you need to have discussions on how we make this successful and get more involved. So I think Facebook, I'm not personally on Facebook, but I think in a combination with the county website and Facebook, I think you can facilitate a very good survey.
So, Adam, can I answer me? The DNR, they do their own survey and they'll do it. They get input from you how to do it all and ask that question.
This is actually gonna be my update, so if you're okay with me just explaining real quick, I
Okay.
can.
It's up
Yeah.
to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so what, Dave is referring to is, the comprehensive outdoor rec plan. So it's a plan, it's not necessarily required per se. The reason why it's required though, and why we say it's required is because every 5 years it needs to be updated in order to apply for many grants within the DNR, which obviously we apply for a lot of DNR grants, so might as well be required. The comprehensive outdoor rec plan is in the budget. We went through the budget last meeting last month. It is in the budget for $35,000 to hire a firm to help us with our comprehensive outdoor rec plan. And part of that is many public meetings, with surveys and getting feedback on the department in all aspects of our department. So that will be getting completed next year.
Okay.
And we do have a Facebook page that Justin, our program and marketing coordinator, does
How we
operate.
use social media
Yep,
Really make an impact. Find out what's going on.
absolutely.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Anything else? Okay.
No, that's it.
All right. Anyone on Zoom?
Let me just double check. No.
Item number 5, discussion decision 2023-2024 Sunnyview Expo utility fees.
I'm gonna defer this one to Rick, our expo manager, as he came up with many of the rationale and the reasoning behind our expo fee proposal for next year.
All right, so the basis of this was that over the years, there's been one flat rate charge for the rental of the expo. If you're having a equine event or if you're using the entire property, it's the same rate no matter what you're doing. You rent one small wing of the expo center that houses 1,000 people, you're paying just as much as, you're doing a massive event with 5,000 people. So with no estimates put in for next year, when this was approved back in would have been 2020, the utility fees were only set through 2022. So we had to come up with fees, so I started doing some research, tracking data. I went from 2019 up to 2022, eliminating 2020 because we were shut down, so there wasn't much there. But just kind of did a little deep dive into what was all the expenses, figured out the different meters, because we have about 14 different meters out there on different buildings and stuff. To try and figure out what is the actual usage for the expo center, for the equine center, just looking at the different expenses and what they actually cost. To one, see if we're actually charging enough to be recouping our costs, and then trying to determine where we should go from there. The biggest thing that I wanted to do was kind of diversify that fee. So if you're only renting the south wing or the west wing at the expo center, you're not covering the electric for the entire property. It's just not right. So I kind of did a breakdown of the meter only shows the expo building. So I took that, kind of divided the building into fourths, so that the center hall equaled half of the building, and then each wing was a quarter. Now that's not quite proportionally correct, but it was a nice, easy number to use without getting down into weird percentage numbers. So you
Just
can
a quick
see,
question on that. If you're renting, the major part or some of the smaller parts, can the heat and lights be regulated? So you're only putting utilities on that whole portion being used?
yes,
You can.
in air units throughout the building,
Mhm.
and they can be generally programmed by each wing. And I can go in individually to each separate air handler and change stuff if I need to.
Okay.
But yeah, it is programmed based on usage, whether it's a west wing, south wing, center hall, or the entire building.
Okay.
So it is designed that way in the control system. So what I did was I just kind of broke down some numbers, trying to look at what is the electric cost. And also factoring in sewer and water and natural gas to make sure we're actually recouping 100% of everything. And we were, so that was good to know that, you know, the math had been done and estimated and guessed correctly. So as you can see in the 2022 breakdown, those were our actual expenses. You're looking at $256 per day for the expo center, and we have been charging $300.
It's gonna be on this page right here. I have it up on the screen. Just, there's a lot of numbers, obviously. We didn't. He actually,
I've
Rick
got
even
a great
cut up.
spreadsheet.
Yeah, he cut up the spreadsheet even to try to make it a little bit less number heavy. But this is the section he's referring to right now.
So you can see on there, we're running $256 per day for the expo, about 64 for the west wing and the south wing. And again, the center hall, you know, equal to about half of the expense overall. And that was taking into account sewer, water, natural gas, everything to make sure we're calculating all of that correctly. When we look at
One thing to keep in mind, I just want to explain, since you were kind of explaining electric gas, stormwater, is another large bill that we receive. And it's included within our water bill with the city. And it is not, you know, there's no meter for stormwater. So they charge us for the whole site. And so we also did, you know, divide up the stormwater amount between all these different, whether it's the equine complex or the expo, because really there's no meter that one is using more than another. So just everyone's aware, we try to divide it out equally in that case.
Yeah, that one was kind of, like I said, a little bit of a ballpark, just because there is no way to differentiate from one to the other. So we tried to make it just fair on everybody. But right now, WPS is looking at a 8% increase for next year in utility expenses. So we use that to factor in, which is unusually high. Typically, the research that I found went back through, I believe it was 1960 to today. The average utility increase was around 2.8% annually. So typically you just take a 3% factor and calculate that in, but this year they're estimating an 8% increase. So factoring that in, we came up with the figures that are proposed. Which you can see, which one will go up there. So when you look at the proposed fees, and I kind of factored in a little bit because we want to more than cover our costs, because we always upgrade infrastructure. So we got to put a little in the banks, you know, per se, to account for that and any repairs for stuff. But we're looking at increasing the fee for the entire building from 300 to 325, which is pretty much just right around that 8% increase. And then using that figure to come up with half of that for the center hall, so we'll call that 170. I don't want to mess with pennies, we just gotta make everything nice round numbers. And then you've got the west wing and the south wing that both come in at $85. And then for 24 and 25, I did go back to the standard 3% increase and added 3% to each of the figures there. And if we get a major increase from WPS or something, then we'll have to come back and address it to make sure we're covering our expenses. But so that's kind of how some of that came about. And we created a separate fee just for the equine center. And you can see on one of the handouts that you got there.
All of these fees are, and I apologize, all these fees are in the memo. What we're gonna do is we're going to update our exhibit A. Exhibit A in your packet is the current exhibit A that says no fee listed for 2023 through 2025. We will add it into this format and we will highlight it in red. So that way with personnel and finance and the board, maybe it'll be a little easier to follow since it'll be in a familiar format. So for the memo, I apologize, we just listed them. We probably could have added it to this to make it a little bit easier to follow, but it is cut off between two separate pages, so I apologize.
Well, out of curiosity, the last time that Rob did this, I actually got the fees from the convention center and the Culver Center, and we were already considerably higher than what they were. How do we compare now? I mean, if we raise our fees too high, we'll get nothing. Because our Midwest shippers rented the Expo Center 1 year, and we got the convention center for like $600 less. So it's like, we charge per table, per chair, everything in there. The convention center doesn't charge per table and chair. They set it up, they take it down. And we get the room for like $1,600, so for me to approve this, I would like to know how we compare between the Oshkosh Convention Center and the UW Culver Center to make sure that we're not sitting empty every weekend and we get nothing, because every weekend there isn't something in that building. Doesn't matter if we rented it out for $1,500, we might lose money, but we have $1,500. When it sits empty, we have zero. And I don't know how many weekends the barns are full, but I drive by there in the summer and a lot of times I see that building just sitting with nothing. But it gets pretty pricey when you start looking at renting that whole facility and you're basically close to $3,000. If we're in the budget, if that's what everybody else is charging, I'm on board. I don't want to basically, but if we're already, over, like last time I charged, look, we were considerably higher. And if we're gonna go even higher, your events are gonna even get lower. It's like a business that's failing. They raise prices and what happens is that they lose more customers. So then they don't have as much revenue, even though they raise the prices, people go somewhere else. And it's like us, if we're thinking we're gonna get more revenue by raising prices, but the convention center and the Culver Center get their bookings, we lost that revenue, and it's like the dog clubs, they can only afford so much, you can only charge so much for an entry fee. And if it isn't cost effective, they're not gonna rent our building and lose money. But if you have the figures and you can show me that we're competitively priced with our competitors, I'm on board. I'd be happy to vote for it. I don't know if you got those or not, but
I went on actual costs. I didn't look at what other venues are charging for electricity. That wasn't part of the research.
right, well, if you go on actual costs, it's like, you don't know, then maybe we have to trim our costs. Because if we're, like I say, last time I checked, we were considerably, Rob was raising it on the average of 5% a year, and he went down to 2%. Because we were that much more than what they were, and it's hard to get people to book with you unless everything else in, the area is full. You're also competing with the old Eagles Club on Washington Ave, the one by Winnebago Park there, what it was that used to be, the Legend or Legion. There's all kinds of banquet facilities we're competing with, and if we overprice ourselves, we'll have no business. And it's all sounds great, well, we raise this and we'll get this much more revenue, but if nobody books your event or your facility, you got no revenue. And I would just like to make sure that we're in the ballpark, we're not 10% higher now than our competitors.
Well, and I think to be very transparent, kind of as Rick alluded to, we didn't look to our competitors. So we look at utility fees. The utility fees are what they are. There's not much we can do to, WPS is going to raise their rates by 8%. At the end of the day, this committee just has to decide then if we're going to lose money on running the utilities of that building, because as Rick has included in this packet is the actual cost of running the building. And now one thing I will say too is it's the per day cost. So when no one's in there, we're not, it costs, 300. Well, actually, sorry, let me go to the actual numbers but it costs, you could just look right here at just 1 meter. It costs $109 per day. We're charging that $109 for the 3-day event. That doesn't cover the other 4 days of the week. So, costs are going up in terms of what WPS is charging us. We didn't think from something like a rental fee. I 100% agree with you, because that's more of a profit driven, or, the idea is that's where you're making your profit. When looking at utilities, to be 100% honest with you, I didn't even think to look at a competitor, because the utilities are what our utilities are. and what our
Don't you,
facility is.
when you go to book a facility, you're gonna book, say you got 25th putting in.
Yep.
Don't you get 3-4 different facilities and find out what they charge?
For the rental fee, absolutely.
Right, well, that's what we're saying.
Yeah,
There's a total rental fee. When I go to rent something, I don't say, well, what's the utility separate from the rental fee? I wanna know what's gonna cost me, the tables, the chairs, the electricity, the building. What do I have to have? Do I have to have $3,500 to rent this facility? That's what I would like to know. And I just wanna make sure we're competitive so that, you know, we can say, well, we're gonna recover our money, but if you don't rent it to nobody, you're gonna get nothing.
Rachel,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just listening to what Supervisor Binder is saying, I understand, obviously banquet facilities are gonna have different fees. But we're not a banquet facility. We're a huge regional expo center in our county, and that's amazing. And no one else has anything like that around the area. So I take a lot of pride in that. I really appreciate the work that you put into this so that we're not losing our shirt on things and so that we have money to serve our community better.
and a convention center or Culver's, which is more rarely used during more days a week than we, I mean, we are regulated to more Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe a occasional Thursday. No, convention center could basically have someone there every day of the week, and doesn't that help help their costs down or by having more of being used more?
so it doesn't drive the cost down. The cost would go up a little bit if it's used more, because you'd have more staff, you'd have more. But to Supervisor Bender's point, obviously your revenue would go up. Now, some expos, some event spaces, what they'll do is they'll do a cheaper rate, maybe like Monday through Thursday. Because to that point, our weekends are, you know, you might not see someone there every weekend, but our weekends are very full. It's the weekdays where we could definitely use to add something to it. It's the promise how big of a facility is. And that it doesn't, you know, a lot of these other facilities that have banquets and weddings are, you know, along a lake or next to a, you know, some sort of feature like that, that obviously they're going for the atmosphere. But
And Adam, just to clarify, when we hold events, it's not like the banquet facilities, we're not charging like beer fees or food plates. Like,
no,
that's not something that
you
we
cater
provide,
in your
right?
own.
Right.
You cater, so we do have a per chair, per table fee. You know, that's a whole nother discussion that this committee could definitely, you know, we could look at more fees within here. Obviously, we only are, because the utility fee wasn't on there for next year and all these other fees were already set. It was kind of one of those things where we noticed earlier this year that, oh, hey, there's no utility fee set for beyond this year. So we looked at it simply from a standpoint of what are our costs for utilities and how can we recoup those costs?
Karen?
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, we're really just looking at utilities on this.
Just utility
And if we
at
were-
this point.
If we were discussing rental fees, I have to agree with Steve, because you always hear about businesses that, you know, the landlord raises their rate, they can't stay in business, they move to another town. Meanwhile, the building stays empty for 5 years because the landlord can't get anybody to take it for that price. But if you're just looking at if we're just discussing utilities, there's no negotiation. We can't say to the utility company, can you give us a little bit of rate? Because we got a nonprofit coming in. Well, how about we have a little bit cheaper electricity or whatever, or I think that the utility rates are what they are. If we're talking about actual full rental fees, we might figure out how we would negotiate and be in line with others, but all we're doing is looking at electric and gas and sewer and water. They are what they are. There's no, you're not asking for like 5% more just because you can. This is actual fees, or this is actual electrical fees, right? Utility fees. I don't see that there's,
Yeah, Justin, every time we get a bill in, Justin tracks the utility fees, so we actually have every single bill for the last several years, for every single meter, and that's how we came to the conclusion of these prices.
I guess how I base it is like our Midwest chipper, you know, we have a show every year, the first weekend in May. And what we do is we call around and find a facility that's large enough to hold our show, We have about 105 tables, 8 foot by 3 feet. And last year, I think we had like 500 some people come through the door to the show. But bottom line is, if we have to pay so much for the facility that.
But these are we're not discussing facility rates.
But that's part of the facility. When we rent the building, we rent it like the convention center, we got for $1,600. That's what we paid. That's the total cost. I don't care if it was for the utilities, if it was for the table, if it was for the lights. We paid the city of Oshkosh $1,600 to rent that building. And if I rent that building at the expo center, I'm gonna pay about $2,400 to $2,500 because I have to pay $5 per table. I have to pay $2.75. Every one of these chairs is $2.75. It's the cost of our club that we're putting on the show.
But we're not discussing tables and chairs here, are we?
It's a total package. If you look at the rate, this is the rate for the total package. The $20 is added onto that rate. Yes, we're only talking about raising utilities, but it's gonna raise the cost of the facility by that amount.
Jim, is that one?
Well, we were talking apples and oranges here. I understand what you're saying. When you go out, you rent a banquet hall. You go and ask how much, and it's very hard to find, especially if you're having a wedding. You gotta have that planned almost a year in advance. But certain places, like was stated, the hall rent is cheap, but if you're gonna serve food, you're gonna buy it from us. If you're gonna have any drinks, you're gonna be paying our bartender, and you're gonna pay our cost and all that. But I understand what you're saying is when people come out to look at it, how much will it cost me to rent so many square feet to show off my cat? I don't have a cat, but I just thought I threw that in there. No, I don't. They wanted to hear a price and they want to pay that price. That's what you're saying. I understand that. And what you're saying, what Karen alluded to is, we're just talking the utility fee. So then you're adding $20 onto the utility fee for pocketing money.
8%. We're adding 8% because so going into this year, it only went up 2 to 3%.
Utilities.
Yep, the utility fee went up 2 to 3%, but we had about an 8% increase at the beginning of this year from WPS, and now we're getting another 8% next year. So that is why we did the 8% and then 3% for the year after. For the following years.
But
And to allude to
would
what
it make it more attractive not to charge for the tables and chairs? Is that what you're alluding to?
All I'm
And your
saying
cost
is,
would, then we'd be competitive?
I wanna be competitive. When I checked last time, we were considerably higher than the Oshkosh Convention Center. And that was brand new, all remodeled, brand new tables, brand new chairs. And we were like $600 higher to rent that expo center. Well, we didn't go there because they were too high. So you lost our event, so that $1,600 that we would have, you sat empty and the city of Oshkosh got that money. So if we don't know if we're competitive, everybody else is full, you'll get the leftovers. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna go where they get the best price. If you got a nice facility, which the Oshkosh Convention Center is by far a better facility than what you have. I mean, it's got carpeted floors, the tables are new. It was just renovated like 6 years ago. So where are you gonna go? You're gonna go where you get the best facility for the best price. And if we're competitive, I'm on board. But you can't tell me if we're competitive because you didn't get the price.
I won't ask.
Rick, you have more you want to give?
Well, I just, we're not comparing apples here. We're looking at, we have to set a fee before January, because I have no utility fees to use for next year. I'm trying to write contracts for next year, and this is the only thing I have to go off of what we proposed. So I understand what you're saying. If you're looking to rent the venue, my daughter's getting married in about 2 years. So yes, you will look at the entire cost, tables, chairs, linens, rental fee, utilities. Yes, you're gonna look at the total cost of everything. But that's not what this is. This was just done. I didn't do any comparisons because we're only setting utility fees. Our rental fees are already set through 25, so I didn't compare us against any other venues. If you want me to do that, I can, but that's gonna take more time, and we're not gonna have utility fee rates set before January. So I understand what you're saying. I don't have a problem. If you want me to go in and do that and maybe do another change next year and pretty much void out what was set back in 20, I don't care. That's what you guys want me to do. That's what you'll pay me to do. I don't care. We can do that. But right now, I was just trying to set utility fees because we have none. I'm ballparking contracts for next year because I don't have a set number. You know, I broke down the expo center because I didn't think it was fair that somebody was paying $300 when they have 100 people in the west wing, or they have 50 people in the south wing. The south wing is the only thing comparable to the downtown convention center. Low ceilings, carpet, fancy tables, fancy chairs. That's the only comparison that we have. Our venue is completely different than what they have. You can't put a 30-foot bounce house in the downtown convention center. You can't drive trucks and stuff into the convention center. I can pull a full semi into the expo center for an event if that's what they need to do. The trades event that we had last week is doing welding and hammering and stuff. Convention center isn't allowing that. So we're not comparing exact venue types. We have different types of events than what they do. They're more that sit down educational type venue than what we are. We do get some of that, but it's usually by other internal organizations. So there's no revenue cost there. You know, our stuff is we are a public venue. So therefore you get most of this stuff on the weekends because that's when people are able to go out with their families and do things. So it's not quite the same. The only other thing that I had in here was, you know, a couple other fee changes. You know, now with the construction over there done, we did do a description change in the camping area line because it didn't list some of the new parking lots, so I did that change. And then we've had a lot of events recently renting multiple sets of bleachers, which were listed at $50 per unit. And you had to rent 3 of them and pay $150 to move them. Well, we've had some where we spent an entire day moving bleachers around. So we wanted to change that rate to just $100 per unit. So it includes the moving fee. And then we're covered if they rent 8 units and we got to spend all day doing it, we're covered. Because otherwise we were kind of losing money there too. So those are the only other 2 things that I wanted to bring up on here that were part of this change. Like I said, if you guys want me to do a full analysis of where we compare to everybody else and try and get it apples to apples, whether it's the Eagle hangar at EAA or one of the 4 hangars that they rent out there that's more similar to what we have, bare concrete, super high ceilings, you know, we can do that, but I think that's going to be a lot lengthier process than what we can put through yet this year.
Yeah, and I'll vote for this if you will do that for next year. Because I want us to be competitive. I want that expo center to be used. And what we would have rented it from the county if it would have been at a competitive price, but it's not. When we have a club that we maybe on a whole show make $1,500, we can't give you 600 of it because you're $600 higher. We went for a nice facility that met our needs at the best price we could get. And that's what people do. You know, I mean, if you're looking for a job fair, and I'm gonna put a job fair on, if I can rent your facility cheaper than I can rent the convention center, I can set a table out at the expo center. It's a great facility. But I'm not gonna pay you $1,000 more than the convention center because, you know, so I just wanna make sure we're competitive. And if we don't do that on a 5-year basis at a minimum, how do we know?
And I'm going to assume that was done in 2020 when this was put together. If you want me to change it sooner, I don't have a problem with that. But I mean, that's your direction. You guys tell me what you want there.
I think we should go ahead and pass this. I think I'm correct when Rick deals with utilities. I think the overall cost or other things, that if you want to revisit that, we can. You know, if the WPS is going to go up 8%, I'm sure the city, whoever other entity is going to make sure that they recover those costs. So, and there are many different factors that can go into what the cost of renting a facility is. That we want to revisit, see if what we can do, but I think we should move forward. I would entertain a motion to approve the fee schedule as presented by Rick.
Second.
Moved by Karen Powers, is there a second?
Well, I think that should-
Well,
he suggested, I think he was moving it, maybe he can as the chair, so I'll move it.
moved by Karen Powers, second by
I'll second it.
Steve Bender, okay. Any other question, concerns, quickly?
Yeah, I have one on
Please.
this, and I am gonna vote.
Go ahead.
Some establishments have a hall. And it's actually a money pit, but they make their money on the bar.
Yeah.
If you follow what I'm saying, we don't have a liquor license out here, do we? Would that bring any more money in?
Sure.
As
We have a
a,
liquor license, the beer has it.
as,
Why they
as,
bark then for the,
We can't have.
as a government entity, we can't have one. It has to be a nonprofit. That, like, let's say we have an event, the nonprofit has to be there to essentially. Sell the liquor or have that liquor license.
but they have beer at the expo, the fair basically. Yeah,
Or
that's, the fair owns the liquor license.
That's the
Because they have a temporary class B permit. We cannot do class A alcohol as a government facility, so you can't do any mixers. You can only do beer and fermented beverages. But
That's a
even that
good
is
government,
only on-
we can have our own still.
It's only on a temporary basis.
I just got one thing.
Sure, yeah, one.
I just want to, just two real quick comments. And I apologize, I didn't point this out. One thing to look at when we're looking at the utility fee, the overall utility fee is definitely increasing. It's going from 300 to 325. But when you look at an event like you're talking about, where they're just using the center hall, which a lot of our events don't use the whole facility. It's actually going down. So we're trying to be more fair too. So instead of paying 300, you're actually paying $170. If you're just renting the West Wing, which we've had quite a few people that just do that, you're only paying $85. So for a lot of those events, we're actually trying to be more equitable. Yes, it does go up for the whole cost of the facility, and then that's my last point. I think it's always good to look at how we compare to others, even if we're not at our 5-year point. So I think it's a good idea. I just want to echo that. I think it's a good idea, and we should definitely look into it for next year. So.
Okay, ready to vote? Okay, all in favor, somebody saying aye?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes with vote. Item 6, discussion and presentation, 2023 to 2027 Parks Department Capital Improvement Plan. Yeah.
Okay. So. All right, so we're going to run through, I know I've been talking about this for the last 2 months, that hopefully we'd have the capital improvement plan to run through. Just a few notes, for this upcoming year. The finance department is going to be, and the county executive is going to be proposing that we approve the capital improvement plan as a whole, rather than project by project. Obviously, we're going to go through all the projects, but as a whole in February, which I know like Supervisor Binders talked about that before, and some other supervisors on the floor. So just so you're aware, it's similar in the sense of last year around this time, we talked about the parks capital improvement plan. I want to bring you guys in early. And if you were here last year, you obviously would have gone through the same process. A lot of these projects will look familiar. We do have a lot of new faces on the committee this year, so this is perfect. So basically we go through it. If Supervisor Norton would like this on a future agenda, so to go into any projects in more detail, after we just go through it today, we absolutely can do that. And it gives us more time then as a committee, rather than doing it in December, then jumping right into the county board in January. I like to workshop it a little bit more with you. So I'll kind of get right into it here. This is more or less my little layout that I put together. And this is what will be submitting to the finance department, or the finance director at the end of October when it's due, or the first week of November when it's due from the departments. You'll see there's 1 or 2 things on here, that are under the $100,000 threshold. So this is a worksheet a little bit for me. This isn't the final format that you get from finance. I just like to have a few larger projects or items on my radar and on our radar, even though they'll probably be thrown in more into the operating budget. So 2023, we'll start there. And I do have just a sheet here that we can go through. They can visually see some of these projects, but I'll stay on this sheet for now. As we know, Grumman, we've talked Grumman. Grumman was approved last month at the county board meeting. So we have that next year. We've been meeting, Tom and I have been meeting with, and we met with the residents actually last week, but we've been meeting with Grafe Engineering, continuing through that process, finalizing. We got the dredging permit submitted last week. That's the last, that was that permit that we didn't submit for the grant, because it would take too long. So the dredging permit has been submitted. That's a 60-day window at the minimum. So that's why we wanted to get that in. So that way, our goal is still to go to construction next March. March 1st would be our goal in our project specification. And we hope to go to bid right after Thanksgiving and open them before Christmas. So we're trying to hit that window between the holidays. So we already, and we're trying to hit a window with the county board. If, it's over by even 10,000, we technically have to ask for that from the county board. So we want to make sure we have a window in January to also be able to get that in front of the county board if we need to. Also for next year, a request we'll be having is automatic pay stations. This kind of is prompted a little bit by the Grunman. We want to put a automatic pay station, so credit card reader. At this one, I will actually pull up one of my reference pictures so you can see a little bit better what I'm talking about. That's why I try to at least have some visuals. So this is a automatic pay station. This is just an example from a company, Ventec, that does parking meters and actually pay stations for boat landings. Brown County and City of Oshkosh have a Ventec system. Basically, what we'd be looking to do is, if we're going to switch it out at Grunman, to switch it out to all 7 of our boat landings. So that way our users have the same process. We can get up with the times from a credit card standpoint. And honestly, I've been a park ranger a few times this year to try to learn what my staff is doing too, and to get a better feel for the residents and the users. And, opening envelopes that are either empty because they're trying to, pass something by us. And it's not often. Or you open one up. I had one with a paper clip and a few pennies in it. So for the most part, most people are honest, but this will definitely help with that as well, because you get a receipt that's printed out. If you don't have the receipt, well, you didn't pay. So it's a lot easier to regulate. Brown County has said that they have been able to recoup some money from this. They've had theirs now they got it during COVID, so about 2 years now. So we'll be going up there to look at their systems a little bit more.
And these things are strictly credit card readers.
They take cash too.
They don't have any, it doesn't.
They do.
It
Yep,
does
they'll
have
take cash too.
Oh.
So this will take the cash and the credit card.
Oh, so cash can end up in that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So that way, if you don't want to pay with credit card, you still have the opportunity to pay with your cash.
But that also means that it could be ripe for being vandalized and someone stealing the thing and get.
It is. They are anchored to concrete pad. But so, I mean, right now we have cash metal boxes out there right now.
Yeah, okay.
So we've had people try to steal from those too.
Okay.
So either way, that's why we have the park rangers and we try to monitor it as much as possible.
You get that receipt and they put that in their window then.
Correct. Yep. Brown County, I think Oshkosh for sure. I know for sure Brown County, they do also their annual stickers through this. That doubles the price of them, and they've been having nothing but issues with printing the stickers. So our suggestion would not be to go that route. So the 120,000 is for the concrete pads, any electrical work, and then all the stations. Now, one of those stations is grouped into the Grumman boat landing, so that number will get adjusted as I work on that here in the next couple of weeks. But that was also a request. ARPA, apologies, John Damel asked me for some ARPA or some of our projects. And that was one of the projects that was also put into that as well, or into that request with the committee. And then next year so we've been trying to be in a cycle of engineer 1 year, project the next year, if obviously if there is a project. So next year, if you recall, and I apologize, I don't have an old CIP. So last year we had Waukah Dam and we had the expo at the same time. But at that time, the expo was less and Waukah Dam was less. So it made sense that we needed to shift one later and keep one for next year. With Waukah Dam being, the maintenance issue that it is, or the fact that we could lose if we have a big rainy year next year, or I should say within the next couple of years, we could lose that embankment. We have opted to go to request for the Waukah Dam next year. The idea with Waukah Dam is that we could potentially apply for DNR stewardship funds. They're very competitive, but it is a unique project and we would potentially have a chance. It's also on a waterway fishing opportunity. So there's other grant opportunities out there. So that will be something we would do the engineering next year, but we need obviously enough engineering in order to apply for those grants. So that would be next year with the Walcott Dam, then construction in 2024. So we'll move to the green column there. Now, this is a new one. I'm gonna just start from top going down. Lasley Point, this is one of those ones I'm just putting out there, so it just an opportunity to explain what we're doing at Lasley Point right now. That's our historical site, for those that aren't aware, in the town of Winnebago.
That's what we did on the tour.
Yes, correct. So that we were on the tour there, yep, north of the high school there. We actually did meet with the archaeologist out there, because there were some complaints on bikes out there. We met with the state archaeologist, we met with the Winnebago County Historical Society, we had a great conversation. There's a lot going on out there, a lot more than we thought. We have maps dating back to 1930s. We need to get our master plan updated for this park and figure out, there is a lot of historical and archaeological sites out there, with archaeological items. I would hesitate to basically, we need to develop a maintenance plan because they were riding bikes or walking right over some of these. And so that is something where we're addressing the immediate by closing down some areas. But we also need to address a maintenance plan for the future and a plan for the future on how does the county want to utilize this park so we can get the most use out of it, but also showcase what it is. So there'll be more on that as we continue to work through that. The state is interested in trying to help with a few things and update the map a little bit. So at very early stages, we just met with them in August. So as of right now, that is, there's potentially some engineering or design type help that we need. And it's going to be more specialized engineering. You're not going to find a Grafe who does construction. It's going to be more one that's focused on historical. And then Shangri-La, I am going to move to this one to show some of you where this is. So we did not go on this on the tour. This is a nature site. So sorry, that was actually from a few years ago. You can see it wasn't growing as much. So Lasley Point, or sorry, Shangri-La. Shangri-La is a nature preserve that was purchased 1999, 1988, somewhere in that time range. It is this parcel here, and then also this parcel here. This parcel was purchased a year or two after. You can see it's more wooded, it's higher up. And the reason it was purchased was for the development of a parking lot and basically this whole site is a wetland. I encourage you to go out there. It's a really unique property. So at the time when this was purchased, there was the county board in 2000 or 1999, somewhere in that time period. There was a request for to share a naturalist with Hecrat. If those of you, Hecrat Nature Preserve up in Menasha. So it's almost identical in terms of 40 acres, just like Hecrat. At that time they had a part-time naturalist, and the idea was to share a naturalist and utilize and showcase this site. The site was donated. So basically it has sat for 20-25 years. If you go in there, it is a beautiful site. So what we're looking to do, we used some operational funds this year. We did a wetland delineation just to this 5-acre parcel. The initial thoughts, we haven't got the report yet, but the initial thoughts is there's definitely highland in there that you can create a small parking lot. And then we are working with Rattler to do a master plan to look at what the potential costs would be to, 10-car type parking lot, gravel. Right now it's on Riff Road. It's a small road. You can park on it and you can access the site. But then also what would it take to do like a boardwalk trail and that kind of thing. And those types of projects, we could definitely leverage potentially donations and that type of thing. There's a lot of people out there that will donate to something like that if we find the right partner. So we need to though look at what is the potential for that site. So that is what we're doing, and it's all being done under this year's operational budget. So the 100,000 potential in here is for that parking lot, wayfinding a sign, and just to basically, we don't want to do too much to that site because it is a nature preserve. But just enough to gain access to the site. So people creating a map, those types of things. So obviously I don't have anything for down the road for whatever the boardwalks or something like that would cost. That would be something in the future once we go through this engineering phase. Yes,
Sorry, is that okay if I ask the question?
I think so.
For the Shangri-La site, will we have like a slab for porta potties once that's ready?
I mean, that's another consideration, just like we do a
Just because-
Walcott Creek, Walcott, yeah, Walcott Creek has one, Walcott Dam, you know, we do put them out there. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely possibly we put one out at Fox Crossing Dog Park. So if it was developed, you know, into a parking lot with access, we probably would.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And then that year would be the engineering for phase two of, or the, what is being called so we have the East Campus improvements, the West Campus improvements of the Expo. And I apologize, this map is everything from 2019. And it's a very intense in terms of data. That's why it's moving so slow. So let me just get down there. Very detailed map. So the West Campus, you guys, as it's loading, took, of course, it went down a page, took the tour in May, June. When was your tour? May, June. And I know you went to the and looked at Rick was there to show you. So
Oh, that's maybe.
yeah, and I know looked at the Expo improvements that we're working on, saw the East Campus improvements that were pretty much done at that point. Phase two, now it's loading faster. All right, so phase two, so this was phase one that we're pretty much complete with over there, just a few little things. In my updates, I kind of keep you guys up to date on that. Phase two is this portion. So that phase two includes the entry. It includes stormwater retention pond. Obviously, we have a lot of water issues. I showed that video of the rain events, East Campus versus West Campus in its current state. The parking lot is the original 1988 parking lot, obviously maintenance here and there, but in general, it is the original base, the original parking lot. And then we obviously use this bottom area for gravel parking or for camping. And then more of a, if you've ever tried to park at the Expo and you're the event organizer or you're dropping someone off, it's a long distance from the first parking stall to bring in all your equipment into those front doors. So creating more of a drive-through, drop-off type area. Also included in this is the archway, the historic archway that some of you may know. Basically, the original archway from, and we met with the Winnebago County Historical Society on that as well. The original archway that was out here that transferred to a private owner that now we have back, trying to get that to its original state. So
So we are gonna, because I donated money that years ago. Is it gonna come back?
So how much was in the community foundation?
Who?
1,100,
I don't know, it came back.
something like that. There was a little over 1,000 in the community foundation for the art. There is money in the community foundation, Oshkosh Community Foundation for the archway from whenever the fundraising did happen. Basically, Rick and I do need to go through phase two. It is a large phase because there's a lot of asphalt. And we are working on what is the right size for the parking lot. But we have more overflow that's gravel parking lot versus asphalt. Obviously, you're still doing a lot of, it's about half the cost if we went that route in terms of asphalt versus just doing all in gravel. Obviously, we wouldn't do the whole parking lot all in gravel, but it might be hard to tell from the map above, but that is a lot of asphalt. But to a certain degree, it is a maintenance issue, and it is, it's very much a maintenance project. You're not going to see a lot of large improvements to it other than maybe the drive-through. Water, we've always had issues with water because of just how low the Expo was built and the site grading. So we need to work through that. We need more parking, or we need to improve the parking. And it's a pretty basic project in that sense. There's really not a whole lot to talk about it with it, but we need to trim it down before we bring it to this committee and feel comfortable with the plan that we have.
And we're still gonna actively pursue trying to get that this year in our funds.
And I did include that, yes. So now that you asked that question too, and I know I alluded to ARPA before, the automatic pay stations, Walcott Dam and Expo were all projects I provided to the county exec as, these would be good ARPA projects, or ARPA potentials, depending where ARPA goes. So yes, I did include that to him, or send that to him. And then in 2025 would be the building of the West Campus improvements and the engineering of Butamore. So the Butamore boat landing, I will pull that one up because this actually was last year. So some of you might not have seen this actually. should be just next page. So this is the Butte Boat Landing. Right now, we have the. Sorry, it's just loading a little slow again. The parking lot right here to the north is existing. And the round, like the turn around here is existing. We were all out there, but just this is green space right now, if you recall, when we went out to Butte. So that's all green space. So this project isn't as large as Grunman. Grunman is is 1.7 million. This is about $1 million is what we have estimated at this point. Mainly, it's this parking lot is the high priority and potentially the restroom. Luckily, this restroom is sitting right on top of, it's either sewer or water. I apologize, I don't know right off the top of my head, but it's either sewer or water that runs, actually, I can see it, sanitary sewer. Sanitary sewer runs right through the middle here. So we do luck out a little bit. This one is, it probably doesn't have to be a pit toilet, probably can be right to sanitary. So, but yeah, it's this main, that's why it's $1 million versus a full 1.7. And then we get more to some of our further out years, 2026, Eureka Playground, Eureka Boat Landing has a small playground out there. Actually, ironically, I was talking to the resident about storm damage out there, and they brought up the playground all on their own about how often it's used by residents out there, because there are very few parks out in Eureka. So this is definitely a area that I think would be beneficial for the county to continue to maintain also for park use. Because it is more townships out there and less park space. Next year, when we do the comprehensive outdoor rec plan, I think a lot of this will shuffle around in terms of shelter for those of you that were on the committee last year, you know that we had shelter 3 on there. That was pushed back, at least by my county executive, wanting a better plan for the community park as a whole. So the comprehensive outdoor rec plan, when we go through that process next year, that is part of that focus, is to look at the community park and make sure that we're prioritizing. Do we want all 5 playgrounds? Do we need all 4 shelter? You know, those types of questions that we look at when we're looking at that park. So
What's left, but which one?
that is the out year, that is shelter 3. When that got pushed, I just moved into the out year because I wasn't given a direction as to what year that would be best for. So I didn't want to remove it from the plan. I wanted to make sure people were aware that it is still in our plan. But it's just pushed to the out years for now. And that's why I say with shelter 4, because shelter 3 was originally before shelter 4 in our plan. So, and then lastly, Expo phase 3, and I don't have a better name for that one at this point. And Rick and I are really taking a hard look at that one in terms of, you know, what is the future of the Expo? Because that will be, you know, 5, 6, 7 years out by the time we get to that particular project. And then we have all.
Maybe like that barn, we could get rid of that barn in the near future. I was just rolling there today, and that barn is ready to fall down. And
Yes.
you know how kids are, kids will basically go back there. And if one of them get hurt there, that barn is the accident waiting to be,
Yes.
happen. And we need to get that down in a timely manner before somebody basically goes in there and gets hurt. And then
That's definitely another project on the Netzer project, probably not a capital, but to what Supervisor Bender's referring to is the Netzer property which is on the Expo property, but the far east end of, and there's been talks about what do we do with the house? Do we see if maybe someone will move it for us, that kind of thing, and not have to pay to take it down? And so there's a lot of thoughts floating around, and yes, that will be a next year item that we need to look at and address.
yeah, I drove in there today and looked at that barn, and that has just really deteriorated in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
It's like half falling down already, and I just know like how kids are. I mean, we got the community garden right there, and some of these parents, maybe the kids are out there and all of a sudden they wander away and they're playing in the barn and they fall through the floor and, it's not roped off. It's an accident waiting to happen.
We'll have to, on an immediate standpoint.
Better to have it moved, or could we, maybe it's not possible, aren't fire departments always look for homes or whatever to practice fire procedures, or can we say here? Practice on these 2 buildings? I mean, I'm just, maybe it's not.
It's a
Maybe-
potential,
maybe-
we don't want to
maybe it's
damage the
not-
well, just in
Okay.
case, there is a good well there and you never know when you'll need water. You probably want to at least keep that for future potential. But it's possible they might be able to work around that. I'm not 100% sure. Let's talk to fire department. And then you can just see all the other out year projects. And that's just something you can take a look at. I apologize, automatic pay stations is on there twice. And then the only one that was added, community park parking lots, because we're not gonna make it through all the community park parking lots with the 750,000 that was approved, so. We'll probably have about 3 or 4 left. And one of them is the pavilion parking lot, and that's big. So. That's what I have for the capital improvement plan. It's, any questions?
Anyone?
I'd just like to suggest, like, county park's still on well water, and that should be over the city water. I mean, we used to have, like, Nalki's had a good well, and Salt Park had a good well, they capped them with a liability. And all the bubblers and everything in county park is still well water, even though we check it every year, we don't know when they could be contaminated. So I would think that we have ARPA funds available, that's part of the Clean Water Act, that would be definitely a project that would fall under that money. And for liability standards, if nothing else, I would think in the near future, we'd want to look at that.
Jim?
I have nothing. I'm very pleased with how everything went at the last board meeting. I really thought somebody was gonna say something. If they knew we added on running water for a toilet, they probably would have. But it made it. And thank you from the people that came. That helped out also.
When you? Okay. Okay, then we'll move on to item number 7, discussion, Park and Recreation Committee County Board Survey Result.
You wanted this on, did you want me to highlight anything?
Yeah, I mean, did,
I know you
Well,
wanted
let
to
me-
add it to
let me-
discussion.
okay, let me start about this. I want to get your reaction, because, and that's why I put it on the agenda. And yeah, just give the initial reaction, you can go Adam first and then me.
I mean, what I'll just do is I'll summarize it. Justin and I have looked at it a little bit, just if you have anything to add. 12 people responded to it. You can kind of see by this graph, 41% of people had at least a basic knowledge already of the parks. Only 1 or 2 had an excellent knowledge, and then the other ones were either limited or advanced knowledge. So for the most part, it seems like, more than half, about almost 75% of people have at least basic knowledge or advanced knowledge. So I think we're doing at least a average or above average job of social media or advertising what we have at the parks. I think, but Justin and I would both agree that we can always do more, and there are some sites that we do need to do more on. Whether it's people had no idea ever about Shangri-La, as we talked about, some of those types of, those other properties that are out there. I wonder how many people know about Ken Roble, those types of properties. There's always improvement on our end. One thing I did notice, and Justin and I were talking about it again today, is it does seem pretty well-rounded in terms of there's some people that you can tell the fairgrounds and the expo is what they value, whereas others are the boat landings and the general park areas. You'll see a lot of trail things in here in terms of people enjoying the trails. And the last thing I'll say, there's 12 respondents, there's 36 board members, so this is about 1/3 of the board. To give you, and I'm guessing most of you filled it out. So just when you're thinking about with a lot of these surveys, that's a lot of what I have to do too, is extrapolate. And as as Dave talked about during his public comments too. If you don't get enough responses from a survey and you don't get enough, are you truly getting the certified results, the true feedback of what the county board as a whole really truly feels about, or the questions you wanted to ask? So that's these thoughts. I take nuggets out of these types of things, but I also understand that it is only 12 out of 36 supervisors. So and on top, obviously there's a lot of, it doesn't have any other residents, which I excited for our comprehensive outdoor rec plan to really hopefully get some more feedback from around the community next year.
Well, you're right. I wish more would have responded, but they didn't. We can't do anything about that, but I think I don't know. He alluded to, I remember we had that outdoor survey park rest a few years ago. We had like 3 or 4 meetings. Steve, remember we went around and we couldn't get anyone to come talk to us, and that's a big challenge of Justin. That's like, how do we get more people involved because, I mean, and then you hear these things afterwards. I mean, you know, I'm glad David and his group came forward, but, you know, nice that they spoke up when we were doing the survey. So, that's a big challenge. I think, I don't know. We have to work on to get a better response. You know, this one quick response, I'm going to respond. We're talking about the Sunny View fees and one person would charge more for the Sunny View. You give the space away. So someone obviously disagrees with this, Steve. So, no, I just think, I take to heart what Dave said. I think and like I say, I've been a part of different community things and the parks, like I say, twice I've been through. Yeah, I tell you, when you've gone out, one time was during the winter time and hard, and I remember going up to Winnebago and no one. And then in the summertime, Steve was part of that one, the summertime when we couldn't get anyone to come in. We went to Armo, went to Nina once, came here, so. That's one thing to reach out to have community town hall type meetings, but other ways. So I would like to drive up those numbers a little more, try to get both people who do use our facilities and not, so yeah. Any other comments about the survey? Staff updates, Rick?
We already talked about a couple of the big things. You know, I did book 2 quinceañeras and a wedding today. For next year, who will appreciate the lower utility fees because they're not paying for everything. And I did have a phone call just before this meeting. For a bobblehead sports swap meet next year. You know, so trying to come up with new and different things.
Yeah, bring your bobblehead in.
Yeah, things you put on the Kardashian.
The little hits
Yeah.
like this.
Apparently that's a market. Somebody called and asked about renting a
Okay.
facility. I gave them prices and didn't seem to have any issues with that. Their next message was some open dates, so. We all are also looking at a Wizard Fest. Possibly for next year. They're gonna be in the area, I think it was November sometime. They wanna come do a site visit for the property. So that'll be, something else new.
Is it like a Harry Potter themed party? Or what is
Basically,
it?
yes.
Okay.
They currently have one in Ironton, Ohio. That's where they've been having one for years, and they're looking to expand to a second festival somewhere else in the States, so they picked us for whatever reason. So when they come here in November, then we'll see how that goes. When you're talking about using the facility and making sure we're priced to everybody else, looking at, whatever phase 3 is gonna be. For years, it was, we gotta build barn F, we gotta build barn out. I don't see a need for that anymore. When we're looking at vast majority of our horse shows, they're 2 barn shows. We have probably a third of them use all the barns. So I'm looking at trying to work with some of the horse groups and maybe put like a committee together and kind of help define what is that next step. Do we build a third arena? Where we could potentially, one group told me if I had a third arena, we could host 2 shows simultaneously of 2 barns each, but we need a third arena to do that. Do we encapsulate barn A and B, and winterize them so that we can have shows in the winter? Do we put walls on the covered arena and make it an enclosed arena? What is that next proper step to make sure we are using the best use of the taxpayer money? And again, that's gonna be a very lengthy project. But I think it's necessary versus just going ahead with something that may or may not get used. So those are some of the bigger projects we're working on. Just getting all the little maintenance stuff done this winter. We got a lot of little projects that are gonna get taken place when we're a little slower in that November, December timeframe. And just continuing to try and market it to different areas and try and get different opportunities in here. And then facilities is on schedule next year in the spring to get all the LED lights put in that we purchased this fall They said that they can't get to that this year, so that's got put on hold. We do have all the components, they're all sitting in the garage, waiting to go, but that won't even begin until next year. And that's kind of the same with, we also have the gutter project. People are so backed up that I can't get anybody that'll bite on that till spring here. So I think that'll have to come through as a carryover for that budget item in the future too. So those are just some of the things that the expo that I'm trying to work on.
Not too much to report in the office. Gonna be tallying up all of the boat launch fees for this year. We've got all that stuff all picked up from festival. I got to pick it up from Fishtails yet too, and once I get that, I'll enter all those into our system and then gonna figure out where we stand this year. I think it would be pretty close to what we were last year. So the online reservation, or the online system to buy stickers helps out quite a bit as well. Stuff like that, pretty good so far the last 2 years. But
Just a few things. We touched on a lot of them. The comprehensive outdoor rec plan, as I mentioned, that'll be in the budget. And then we'll probably kick that off if we can get RFP out early in January, February, because that'll be a full year process. Shangri-La I already talked about, Leslie Point already talked about Silent Park. You're gonna see a lot of things going on over at Asylum. A lot of that's Wisconsin DNR. So if you get any questions, I just want to make you all aware. They actually replaced the asphalt by their building, by the bridge, the Silent Bridge, up just about 150 feet past the bridge. Because they were doing a whole asphalt project back with their garage. Now that whole road is there, that whole area is theirs. So that worked out really nice. It's gonna look, it's gonna be nicer over there. Obviously, the pavements and there's still other pavement that needs work, but at least it's an improvement out there. And then you'll see them also building a building out at the Asylum Bay boat launch. And that is DNR land. That's the storage building. Those of you, some of you may know, they've been working on that for 20 years. So that old one's gonna come down and then they're building a new storage building right next to it. We've been receiving a lot of questions, so just, want to keep you guys in the loop, and the DNR has been great with keeping us in the loop, letting us know when things are happening. So been working great there. The buoys have been removed from the water, all of our buoys.
Do we have to look for any of them, or do they all stay put?
We either, Oshkosh Dock takes some of their buoys back to their shop. Some of them they leave at the landings, like at Black Wolf, they leave them right at the landings, or they're having.
But then we came loose and we had to go like look search for them.
One or two came loose this year. I always get a report from Oshkosh Dock when they do, because then we get an extra bill because I had to chase them down. And then Ken Roble, this is just kind of a heads up at some point. I know before the transition in spring of the board, we were gonna set up a meeting between the parks, either the parks chairman, the solid waste chairman, or the entire boards. But we have an agreement with the solid waste department for Ken Roble. They built the park, we're doing maintenance, but there's an agreement there, and both committees have talked about, it seems that both committees would like to revisit it. So we can go, maybe we can do a highlight of that maybe next month. Or something. I'll talk to Chairman Norton, but eventually we'll need to meet with solid waste on that as well. And I know John Raby over at solid waste, their director, is aware of that as well. That's the major updates I have at this point.
Couple things. What projects did you submit for the ARP? ARPA bunch fund?
But the ones that I submitted, the ones I informed Supervisor Binder of earlier, automatic pay stations, Waukah Dam, and the Expo. I feel like I'm missing one, but those three. Because we have engineering documents for most of them. Most of them are ready to go if they were awarded next month.
So what would be, if the Expo, what would be paying for the whole project or part of the project, or?
I mean, I provided the whole entire cost. Obviously, it's a large project. I mean, I've seen worksheets on percentages of each project, so I have a hard time believing they'd pay for 4.5 million, but.
Well, that's good. I asked this because in my parking committee, they told us their projects, and one of the projects they're submitting was to help pay for the construction of their training facility. And I told the committee, I don't think that would fly because that was approved by the board before the pandemic and our budget was allocated. So I'm just, it's good. I just want to be consistent. I'm not saying Okay, yeah, because eventually it'll come to the board. A couple of different rings. It first goes to our committee, then the P and F. And then it'll come to us. I'm just trying to be consistent. It comes to us. Hey, you know, Mike, you said you went to vote for a project that was done basically before the ARPA funds were even thought of. But why would you do now? And good. My second question would be, you know, we heard that one thing Paul Eisner wants to fund is the emergency generator or some, is it?
Yes,
who's-
that is the fourth one I'm thinking of. So that
is
is,
that a project? for
I
us
can
or
explain that.
facilities or what?
that is actually, that is being pushed by emergency management. That is so they want, most of the county, departments have the expo as their in their emergency response plan. If their building were to have an issue, or if there was a tornado in the west part of the county, or, you know, whatever it may be, that is a shelter destination. So emergency management has been working with our department and with Rick and I, and with IT and with facilities. And their goal is to put a generator at the expo, solar on the roof generator. And I apologize, I'm just trying to make sure I get all the components, IT upgrades and electrical upgrades to support, obviously, all those systems. So it's not officially a park pushed project, or, I mean, there's benefit to the parks in the sense of, one of the upgrades in it would be the upgrade to the service itself within the expo, which is original from 1988, and it's hard to get fuses for it. So obviously updating that would be, you know, it's about a $80,000 project. But it would definitely be a benefit to the Parks Department, but that is more being driven by emergency management. So that's what you probably would do, yes.
All right, okay. That all have? That's all?
Yes, that's all I have. Yeah.
Committee members updates. Rachel,
Nothing at this time.
Steve,
I know last year I brought up about the grants for the restock the ponds. Have we written any grants to restock the ponds? I know County Road Park, there used to be people fishing there all the time. I talked to people, they say there's no fish in that pond. There's no point in fishing there.
Solid Waste has talked about Ken Roble and helping with that. We've been trying to let them do, because they talked also about treating the pond. So I've been working with John a little bit on that. I'll get an update from John on Ken Roble. We have not written anything. I have seen people catching out of the community park. We can definitely revisit that to see if it still needs to be stocked. I have seen people taking fish out of there though, even as recently as a month ago. But I have not done anything for the community park. And then Ken Roble, I've been, Solid Waste has seemed to be interested in potentially. I don't know about their committee or board approving anything, but John is.
I mean, they built that, it's about a $200,000 dock they built. And it's kind of useless to have a beautiful dock like that when, you know, it was fun. You'd go out there, you'd see families catching fish. And, you know, it's supposed to be catch and release. You don't care if a small kid takes a few fish home, you know, but when that's all gone now, because there's no fish, well, it's like, why do we have a nice facility with a nice dock and no fish to catch?
Yeah, I'll check with them where he's at. And I know we sent him some contractors for the treatment of the pond just recently. So I'll check to see on both of those and see if they're doing anything, and if the park can help in any capacity.
Those good things.
Steve, if you want to give update, Gordon Hens, Superintendent Hens this morning at the legislative committee, gave a little short update about the Brenman boat landing joint finance committee. Could you just tell everyone what he told us? I can't remember, totally remember.
They were going to vote on it. He didn't think it would have to go to the finance committee, that unless somebody had questioned something.
Yes.
So they were gonna do that in the next.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize. That should have been part of my update. I know exactly what's going on. Yeah. So the joint, so what ends up happening, and I know I've alluded it here, but now that it's officially happening, we received the 832,000 tentatively from Wisconsin DNR. Then what ends up happening is because it's over 200, it's 250,000 or more, those go in front of the state joint finance committee for passive review. So as of Tuesday, the 11th, it was given to the entire joint finance committee. A copy of the letter was given to them. I mailed the week before, on the 3rd or the 4th, I mailed a letter to all 6 or 8 of our every state representative we have within our county, even if it wasn't within Grunman's area, to just inform them of the project, let them know to ask them for their support, and if they have any questions, to give me a call on the project. Because if there's an objection from the state finance committee or joint finance committee, typically they go to that that supervisor in that district and ask them questions on it. If we do not hear anything by the end of the day this Friday, then it has passed that passive review. So it's in the middle of it. It's a 2-week, but 2 business week review process. If anyone does speak up against it, then that's when that would potentially slow up that process, or, but as of right now, I have not heard any feedback, which is a good thing. We're pretty much no word is good word. So by Monday, we'll know if we have 832,000 from the DNR.
Thank you, Steve. Jim,
No, I already said what I was gonna say.
Karen,
Yeah, just a quick question, Evelyn. When Steve asked about fishing in the Kenny Roble Park, and you said about treating the water, are you treating the water to make it more habitable for fish? Or are you treating the water because there's something wrong with you, treating it because you're trying to kill off fish? What are we treating?
The solid waste reached out to me because they want to treat it for the weeds.
Weeds, and what will that do to fish?
There
Because
are,
don't the fish need weeds to kind of eat on and stuff and hide in and?
yes, and I mean, there are, first of all, there are chemicals that won't harm the fish.
Okay,
Yes, some of that is their habitat to a certain degree. You know, it is more of an aesthetic thing than anything.
But
Obviously,
is
with
that really-
fishing, you don't want to cast your rod in weeds, because that's not gonna, then you're just gonna keep pulling up weeds, so it's not gonna be good for
but
fishing.
whatever's happening will increase the fish population?
I don't think it would increase it or decrease it.
Okay.
We do have an expert fisherman in the back of the room, but I know.
I don't want to hurt Steve's fish.
You know, when the weeds die out in the fall, it causes an oxidation problem also for the fish, so they will struggle then also. When the green weeds die, it causes a problem. But you don't want real a dense mat or the fish can get around in the pond. I mean,
Okay.
it stunts them.
Okay. Thank you.
nothing for me. Next meeting date, Monday, I have Monday, November 21st. Is that correct?
28th. Is the 4th Monday is the 28th.
Yeah, I've got the 28th.
Okay. Also, you have any thought, December, we want to meet? I don't think we want to meet.
I have the 26th, which is the day after Christmas. It's probably a holiday.
It's a holiday for staff, yeah.
So,
I'm in the rest of that week, but
You're what?
I don't have any vacation time left because I'm always going to Florida. No, so 27th, 28th, 29th, I'm in, or we can
Well-
push it to January, the first week of January.
why don't we say, tentatively say 19th?
That would work
And
fine.
Go to the 19th. Okay.
And the holiday party for the county will be same night. It's gonna be at the Roxy in Oshkosh. Okay.
Good, because I read that thing over and I never saw a place listed in the,
I asked Julie Barlow on Friday. And
okay.
she said that's what we're having. Okay. Any future agenda items? Steve, Jim, anyone?
Okay.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn
So moved.
by Karen, seconded by Jim. All in favor, by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.